You know, this is going to sound like such a basic question, but I'm sure a lot of listeners and viewers out there are thinking the same thing. Well, this is wonderful. We get to see who our president is of the AVMA Medical Association, but what exactly does a president of the AVMA actually do? And are we putting too much pressure on Dr. Kratt to institute these policies and reform and change because perhaps he just doesn't have, the infrastructure of the AVMA may not give him that latitude. What actually does a president do so that people can actually understand what your role is?
So thank you for that question, because I think a lot of people think that I can just wave a scepter and everything will be the way that I want it to be.
Snap your fingers and everything's great. Yeah, exactly.
Right. That is not the role of the president of the AVMA. So I am for lack of a better term, I'm probably once you become president, you become the chief spokesperson for the AVMA. You are one of a group of people that affect policy or the business of the AVMA. So I sit on the executive board. I also sit on their board of governors. So I do have that voice, but I am one person in that voice. I get to go to meetings and meet with members. I get to do these type of media interviews. So I get to talk about my platform a little bit, but people always ask, what's my agenda as president? Courtney, I don't have an agenda. I have what my platform is, which is I really want inclusion. I do want diversity. I want to connect and build with the members. So one of the things I talked about was Lego blocks, how we build together. And you step on one Lego block in the middle of the night, it hurts your foot, but we can take 1,000 Lego blocks together and build great things. And that's really what my belief is. Yeah. And great presidents before me, they all had different ideas. Mine is I kind of want to talk with the veterinarians. I want to go ahead and be that public face that we need, but I also want to talk with the veterinarians, even the disenfranchised veterinarians or the veterinarians that may be struggling with different things, and seeing how I can assist, see if there's already resources there and they just don't know where the resources are, and helping with that. So I can't wave my wand and fix everything, but I can bring the voice to the table, the important voices to the table, and put my ideas in the same think tank.
Yeah, I like the concept of how you work, which is more of a collaborative approach, using the resources that are already there, reaching out to people, and getting basically a diverse team on board so that you get a wealth of ideas from different perspectives. When you're leading that team of maybe rivals, people who disagree with you, maybe people who agree with you, when you're leading that team, what is your concept or sort of overarching goal, or sort of the Kratt doctrine of leadership? How would you define leadership?
So, there are a bunch of different leadership styles. And I think the way that you said it is I have a tendency to be a collaborator, is more my leadership style. I want to find out if there are people that are angry at me or angry at the AVMA or organized veterinary medicine, why? Sometimes it's something that happened months or years ago that really is no longer valid.
You're telling me that people might be angry at the AVMA? No way.
Well, as you know, it can happen, but sometimes it's because we're not listening. Sometimes it's because we didn't do an effective job communicating some other aspect of it. So I'm okay getting into some of the uncomfortable situations, because sometimes it's just a matter of, hey, that's water under the bridge. We don't even know why the argument's still there. Why don't we look at things forward? Why don't we grow? Why don't we try to make things better? I think that's a little bit more of my style. And as I know every day, I don't have all of the answers. And if you ask my kids, I probably have less answers than I think I have. But I like that. I like that idea better. I do like problem solving, but I also know problem solving is much better if I can get a group of people together so I can look at things from a different angle. So I get educated on, hey, I didn't look at it from your side of things as much. I didn't think of it that way. This is the way I was thinking about it. How can we come to a common point on it?
Sure. And I may be using the wrong words here, but you are committed to inclusion and diversity. Can that commitment actually be reflected in your cabinet per se, and in who you choose to work with? Or is it not necessarily like a cabinet surrounded by the president? Essentially what I'm asking you is, you've got these goals. You really want to institute policy reform, but those policy reforms can't actually take place unless those surrounding you also agree with the Kratt doctrine, so to speak, or your ideas. So are you committed as well to work with people around you that are diverse or come from different backgrounds?
Very much so. First and foremost, I don't have a cabinet. I'm a member of the board of directors.
Sorry about that.
No, that's okay. I will work with anybody that's willing to work with me. Okay. I think that's the important aspect of it. We talk about diversity and inclusion, excuse me. And we talk about, it kind of goes into that student debt load, and it kind of goes into mental health and well-being. These are phrases which are fine, but we now need to work on them. We need to make actionable steps to go forward. And so if anybody thought I was being off-putting or dismissive of those, very much so I'm not. I do know that all of these are very important. And honestly, some of them are very integrative, right? They're not their own silos. I will tell you that the AVMA has people looking at diversity and inclusion. We're looking at wellness, mental health and well-being. We're looking at the financial aspects of things. In fact, getting ready to talk with you, I talked with individuals in each one of that are those that are, in their playing fields to learn about it. I do know that if I want to work on a specific thing, I'm sure much like you, I'm going to find people that want to work in that area. If people want to put roadblocks up in there, I'm probably not going to expend a lot of interest or energy working with those individuals if they don't want to work in it. So I'm going to find people that want to work down that road. And then we just kind of keep working on the path, going over, around, through, under, whatever it is, to see if we can keep doing it, and the resources that are available to do it.
Sure. A lot of people just got really encouraged and excited and inspired by what you just said 10 seconds ago, and that you have an agenda that is focused on diversity and inclusion, mental health, and workplace, work-life balance, and as well as student loans and understanding the financial this financial strife and financial hardships that a lot of veterinarians are under. And all of those sound like huge, monstrous issues to tackle, and I'm happy that you're doing that. The other question I wanted to ask you is, are those basically your top 3 agendas? Like, what I'm asking is, what else can people look forward to? Because those by themselves are fantastic. And if it was just those 3, I think everybody would be like, yeah, well, let's try and tackle those. But I also wanted to give you an opportunity if there were other things at the top of your mind that you were hoping to tackle during your tenure as president.
Well, so those are AVMA goals, and they went through the strategic plan. And so the beautiful part is, those were developed by a group of individuals that are there. Yes. I know that people feel like the AVMA may not work as or maybe not as nimble as they once were, but honestly, we're going farther down that path. Courtney, probably one of my main things that I want to accomplish, and it falls into all of this, is I want to hear from our veterinary community, the early career veterinarians, the transitioning, the mid-career veterinarians, and those that are near the end of their careers. Because I think we all have different challenges and a different focus on what's important to us at those given time. Fortunately, we have a strong relationship with the student AVMA. I would also potentially like to see if I could get different aspects looking at, and we have a strong commitment with the American Association of Veterinary Medical Colleges as well. We have so many different things on our plate, but let's start looking at going down into the pre-vet programs and potentially before that to see. I think that's where we're going to see changes with what you and I are talking about today, about inclusion, about diversity. I think that's where that's going to affect. But then, a big portion of it is a cultural competence of veterinarians in general. How do we maybe interact and understand better on the environment I'm in, how we can change it? How do we handle it if it isn't the way that we want it to be? You mentioned a workplace well-being. AVMA has put a lot of resources into workplace well-being. So I think that all of that aspect is getting that information out and have people participating in it.
Right. Well, the fact that you are prioritizing listening first and essentially going on a listening tour and hearing from all veterinarians of all levels, transitioning veterinarians, brand new veterinarians, older veterinarians, those who are in underrepresented groups, that gives us a lot of optimism and hope that once you listen and hear from what's actually happening on the ground, then that could actually spill into actual substantive and actual change. Are you as equally hopeful and optimistic about particularly diversity and inclusion within veterinary medicine, or do you look at it as something that's almost intransigent and will be difficult to change? Essentially, what I want to know is, are you optimistic and are you hopeful for the future?
I am optimistic and hopeful for the future. I am a person that if we continue to latch onto all the bad things, especially in the media that we're seeing, and we decide to surround ourselves with negativity, it's going to continue to drag us down. And that can sometimes be a lot of noise, and that's all we're listening to. So I want to look at the positives. I want to look how I can change things. And if I can bring more positives in with me, or I can go to people that are being more positive, I think we can feed off each other and continue to go down that road. So our choices are, do we want to move forward or do we want to give up? And to me, there's only one choice. There really is only one choice, and that is to move forward. I hear about people that want to leave or they don't want to get involved because they're angry about something. And if you don't, I touched on a little bit earlier, Courtney, if I ask for your input and you're angry about something and you're not willing to give it to me, I can't do anything about it. And I may not be able to do anything about it anyhow. I mean, that's being honest again. But if I don't know it and you're not willing to sit in a chair if you're asked, then I don't know where we go from there. People can't do the work for you necessarily or tell your story unless you're one of them. And so I encourage people to get involved with it. And I apologize, I have a phone ringing, but
no, listen, this is what real work is about, man. Not only are we talking about substantive issues, but you're also saving pets' lives and helping humans out too at the same time. So to me, it all conflates, which is really what I wanted to underscore with our conversation today, is that the veterinary medicine, social justice, racism, as you said so eloquently, they are not in their own respective silos. I had the opportunity, or I shared some stories of just racism and implicit bias that happened to me while I'm working. So I think that at the end of the day, this conversation, the fact that the phone's ringing, all of that, show that all of these issues are in the aggregate affecting our daily lives and the way we move and the way that we act among one another. They are not mutually exclusive events, and I'm glad that you and I had a chance to really talk about how, number one, what's the issue? Number two, how do we go about dealing with it? And then number three, what's the future hold? Because I think that is something that I want to improve for every young veterinarian, and anybody aspiring to become a veterinarian, is help to improve the future. And that ultimately, I think, will change the demographic within the profession.
I would agree. And I think it falls on you and I to do that. I really do. And the people that we talk to and can influence. So my associates that work with me, my kids, high school, college kids, that are I have a son and a daughter, of what I think is correct, but they're going to have their own views of what are correct, and I can help guide their compass, but ultimately it's going to be their decision. I think one of the questions that you were asking me at one point was, what role are we playing? I think veterinarians, we own our profession, first of all, right? So let's do what we want of our profession, but we're scientists, we're community members. I think we can also go outside of our clinics and be good stewards of our communities as well, to make the world a better place. Now that's very hokey, but if I want to live in a good place, I got to make it a good place. Right. And I think that's ultimately, there's a lot of us, and I think that we can do that kind of change.
I completely agree. A lot of people have asked me that exact same thing too. How do I become a better ally? How do I institute change? And I think number one, there's a variety of ways. There's no one way, but like you alluded to, just you're doing the good work, raising children who are anti-racist into diversity, into inclusion, and they're going to have their own ideas, but simply raising good humans. I think that's also a great way to be an ally. And then number two is tackle more leadership roles, push yourself in mentorship positions and continue to inspire others just like you're doing right now. So listen, it's been an absolutely fascinating conversation. I feel like you and I could literally talk for hours about this because you broke down essentially what actually does a president do, but then number two, knowing that there's a president in place in the AVMA, at the head of the AVMA, who cares about these issues, who cares about social justice, implicit bias, being anti-racist, including African Americans and other minority groups in the profession, is really welcoming, and it makes me hopeful for the future. So thank you so much for talking with me. I really appreciate it.
I greatly appreciate you inviting me, and anytime you want to talk, you just get a hold of me and we'll talk some more.
Yeah, if you're not in the middle of if you or I are not in the middle of doing surgery, we'll do that. Awesome.
Sounds great.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.